Today, I'm talking about what every teacher, administrator, even coach wants to pull their hair out about, and that's student discipline. And we love our students. We love them so much, but they can also drive us just a little bit crazy. And I know I experienced that as both a teacher and a principal. So today, that's what we're going to talk about, is how we can put some strategies in place to help with student discipline. Effective discipline is not about punishment. It's about leadership, clarity, and helping students master responsibility. That's what discipline really is. And as an administrator in the school, you're the most important person for that, because you're setting the tone for the entire building. I want to start with just a story about a student I had as a principal. It was a little boy, and I'm going to call him Jordan. Of course, that's not his real name, but Jordan was a student that had to come to the office quite often for different things, hitting kids, just multitude of things, calling people names. It was just ongoing. But this one morning in particular, the teacher called the office and said, "I need an administrator." Well, of course, we all knew if that happens, you go immediately. Well, when I got to her office, her classroom, she said that Jordan had came in a bad mood, that his backpack, there was papers everywhere, and he had this scowl on his face, and he was standing up, next to the wall, and he wouldn't come in. And so I got the teacher over to the side. I said, "Well, what's going on?" She said, "Well, he will not come in. I have tried to get him to come in. He won't do his work. He won't start." So I said, "Hey, Jordan, let's take a walk." And so I walked with him down to my office, and I asked him about what he had done the night before on the way down there. And so we get in my office, and I didn't start by accusing him of anything. I just started with, "Hey, Jordan, tell me about this morning. You seem like you've had a bad morning. Can you tell me what all happened?" And so he goes into this long list of things that happened that morning at home, and I was right. He was overwhelmed, and he wasn't a very strong student, and he told me he was worried that he didn't know how to do the work, too. So that was something I went back and shared with his teacher as well. But what I decided to do in that situation was just keep him in my office for a little bit. I asked for the morning work, and I worked with him individually until I felt like he was comfortable going back to class, and then I walked him back down to his room. Now, I know that's a very minor incident, because I've worked in really 3 different school settings: rural, suburban, and urban. And I've had many different discipline situations. Some things I want you to know about discipline is that you have to have clear expectations, because that clears up confusion for everyone. If students know what's expected of them and teachers know what's expected of them, then you're proactive, and that avoids a lot of discipline. For example, if all your teachers are sitting around talking on the playground in 4th grade, and every day at 4th grade after recess, you're seeing kids in the office for fighting or hitting or calling names, then really that's not on the students. They're not being well supervised. So that's something that you could look into to see, okay, is this something I need to talk to teachers about, to see, are they following through with my expectation that you're monitoring your kids while they're at recess? And similar to that is teachers need coaching, especially young teachers that are new to the profession. I've observed teachers that are not very seasoned, and when it was time for transition, their kids would just go crazy, and they would lose the kids, and then there would start being, "He pushed me, he grabbed my book, he did this." Well, what I had to do was sit down with the teacher and talk about, what do you think went well during that lesson, and then what do you think didn't go as well? And she talked to me about how she felt like her class was the worst 4th grade class or 2nd grade class. And I explained, no, what you're doing is not giving them clear expectations for transition. And I shared with her that many of our teachers in the building, when they go from one subject to another, when they're putting away their books and putting up materials, getting out new materials, they'll say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. And then they would have students repeat 1, 2, eyes on you. And it just kind of resets the whole classroom. And so that was something that she could try. Again, I wasn't being critical. I was giving her suggestions. Also, if there was a teacher that I knew was excellent with procedures, I would ask her to let me cover her class with a teacher assistant or someone else, and let her just go watch a transition between 2 different subjects so that she could see how other teachers handled it or how they stored materials, to help that teacher understand that their actions help with the students' reactions. And that's so important. When a student does make it to the office with a discipline problem, it's really important to listen to the student. And you want them to leave with dignity. And you want them to understand what they did wrong, why they're in the office, and what they're going to do differently next time. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, yeah, that's easier said than done. And it is, but there are some interventions that we tried that worked with some, not all, students. Some things we tried were behavior contracts, where the teacher would have the student tell them something that they feel would be a reward, and they would work toward that reward if they had good behavior. A check-in, check-out type system. For example, back to Jordan and having the bad morning, if the teacher might have just been standing at the door and saying, "Give me a high five, Jordan, how's your day going?" That might have reset the tone, not saying that it would, but it would at least been a try to get him back on track without having him come to the office. With older students, reflection forms work. Having the students, especially there are 2 students that had an altercation, have both of them fill out a form saying what happened, who saw it, where it was, how it made them feel. And that just helps you as you talk to them in handling your discipline problems to decide, using the witnesses as well as the 2 people involved, to determine what consequence should be given. And there are times that firmer consequences do have to be given to students. It's something that should be used less often, because honestly, even if you're using in-school suspension, it's pulling that child from the classroom. And many times, one of the reasons a child acts out is because they don't understand the content. And so they're trying to get out of class. So if you can keep them in the classroom, you're much better off. But that's not always possible. Sometimes it even has to be an out-of-school suspension if whatever they did put themselves or others in danger. So one of the things that I felt worked really well for me as a principal was building collaboration with parents. I would always call a parent. If I talked to a child in the office, I always called that parent immediately after that child left my office. And the main reason was I wanted to be the one to tell the parent what happened. Because let's face it, kids and even adults, they don't want to get in trouble. So they're going to make it in the best light possible for them when they get home, and make it in the worst light possible for someone else. So I would call the parent first, so they would hear our encounter and know what exactly we talked about. And also, I would talk with them in a manner that I would want an administrator to talk to me if it were my child. I typically would start out, "Good morning, Mrs. Jones. I just want to let you know that I had to talk to Jordan this morning in the office. Woo, he said y'all had a bad morning." And oh, believe me, I get that. At times I have them too. But he came in and he was, just overwhelmed is how I would best put it. He didn't want to get started on his work, and He wouldn't do what Miss Smith had asked him to do, so she called the office, and I went down and I brought him down to my office and we talked through it. And I told him that I knew you wanted him to be in his classroom learning, and you know, he's a great kid. I've really enjoyed getting to know him this year. So I really feel like by now we should be seeing he's not coming to the office as much. But I know as a parent you want that too. So do you think you could come in and we could sit down with his teacher and maybe come up with some strategies to try to keep him from being in the office? Because we don't want that. I know you don't, and I don't either. 9 times out of 10, that would diffuse the situation. Now, not always. There's always crazy people, kids and adults. So there were some parents that would not diffuse, but many parents, it would. And so I think it's important to at least try to get the parents on your side. Basically, clear communication, early intervention, and parent outreach are your 3 biggest strategies to help with student discipline. Now, in the comments, I'd love for you to leave me a comment on a discipline topic you'd like for me to discuss. Maybe it's something that's happened to you that you weren't sure of how to handle it, or maybe what you think I did with Jordan didn't work. But I do want to kind of wrap back around to him, because we did meet and we did come up with a behavior plan. And the secretary called me in my office and said, Jordan's up here and he needs to see you. And I was thinking, oh, it's early morning. I bet he's had a bad morning. But it wasn't. He said, Mrs. Davidson, I just wanted to let you know that I've gone all week. I've come in every day and I've done my work, and I have just been the best student, and I'm so proud of myself. And I'd say, well, Jordan, I'm proud of you too. I'd let him get a treat from my treat jar, whether it's a sticker, candy, whatever you choose to do in your school. And then I would make a second call to that parent, a positive one. And I would tell them, I don't know what you're doing at home, but it's working, because Jordan was just down here and he's had a great week this week. So we appreciate your help so much. So again, if there's something I can help you with a discipline situation, please leave it in the comments. I'll be glad to answer what I would do in that situation. Or if you feel I could have done something different, please share, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore. There are other teachers or administrators that could benefit from your knowledge as well. So thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.